All right, everybody, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready to dive in.
Awesome. So today we're tackling a story that, well, it pretty intense, even by, biblical standards.
You're talking about David and Bathsheba.
Yeah, King David. I mean,
Yeah, one of the most famous stories.
right. And it's not just about the drama, though.
No, definitely not.
We've got some really insightful sources that really help us look at the ethical and spiritual lessons kind of hidden within this story.
I think what makes it so interesting is that you have this figure like King David,
Yeah.
who starts out as like the ultimate underdog. I mean, he's a shepherd.
Takes down a giant.
Yeah, kills Goliath,
Yeah.
becomes king. You can't get a much more heroic resume than that.
It's like the ultimate success story.
Exactly. But then it all comes crashing down.
Yeah, the sources really make it clear that, power and success, even for someone as devout as David, can be super corrupting.
It's a classic tale of how power can really change a person.
And then you have Bathsheba entering the picture.
And that's where things get really complicated.
Yeah, the sources don't hold back on the details of David's sin.
It wasn't just a mistake or a lapse in judgment.
No, he really abused his power and betrayed someone who was completely loyal to him.
Uriah, Bathsheba's husband.
Right. And that's something that I think is still so relevant today.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the sources really made me think about how these types of abuses of power are still happening all around us.
Yeah, it's a timeless story because these kinds of power dynamics, they just keep repeating themselves throughout history.
It's sad but true.
Yeah. So what happens next is really interesting.
Okay, so set the scene for us.
Okay, so you have David, who has committed this terrible sin.
Yeah, and he's trying to cover it up, right?
Exactly.
But God sees everything.
Yeah, so God sends the prophet Nathan to confront David.
That must have been a pretty intimidating task.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
Right, like going up against the king.
But Nathan is really clever about it.
How so?
Well, he doesn't just directly accuse David. Right. Instead, he tells him a parable.
A parable, what's that?
It's like a short story with a moral lesson.
Oh, okay.
And the parable he uses is about a rich man who steals a poor man's only lamb.
Wow, that's pretty pointed.
Yeah, and it totally works. David gets trapped in his own logic and condemns the rich man in the story without realizing he's condemning himself.
I love that. It's like holding up a mirror to him without actually saying, hey, you messed up.
Exactly. It's brilliant storytelling.
And, it's like you always say, stories can really bypass our defenses.
They sure can. We let our guard down when we hear a story, and it allows the message to sink in on a deeper level.
So how does David react to this parable?
Well, he's devastated. He realizes the enormity of his sin and is overcome with remorse.
It's like the weight of his actions finally hits him.
Yeah, and the sources point to Psalm 51 as like the ultimate expression of David's repentance.
Oh, I've heard of that psalm.
It's powerful stuff.
Is it?
It's raw, it's honest, it's full of genuine sorrow for what he's done.
It must be tough to read knowing what he did.
It really makes you feel the depth of his regret.
So he repents, but does that mean he gets off scot-free?
Well, that's the thing about this story.
What is it?
Even though David truly repents, he still faces severe consequences for his actions.
Oh, that's right. His child dies.
Yeah, and his son rebels against him later on.
It's a reminder that our actions have consequences even if we are forgiven.
Exactly. The sources really emphasize that.
So what does this mean for us? Like, how does this ancient story apply to our lives today?
Well, for me, it's a powerful reminder that we're all human.
We all make mistakes.
Yeah. The sources really highlight the fragility of human nature.
Even for someone like King David.
Right. He was considered a man after God's own heart.
And yet he still fell.
It shows that none of us are immune to temptation, no matter how righteous we think we are.
That's kind of a sobering thought.
It is, but there's also hope.
Oh.
Yeah. The story also emphasizes the importance of repentance.
Owning up to our wrongs.
Exactly, and seeking forgiveness.
And it's not just about saying sorry, right?
No, the sources make it clear that true repentance involves more than just words.
Like what?
It's about acknowledging the harm you've caused and actively changing your behavior.
And making amends if you can.
Right. It's about trying to make things right, even if you can't fully undo the damage you've done.
It's a process.
It definitely is, and it can be a long and difficult one.
But it's possible.
Yes, absolutely. And the story of David shows that there's always hope for redemption.
Even after serious transgressions.
Yes, even then, God's grace is available to us.
It's a powerful message of forgiveness and second chances.
It really is.
So, thinking about all this,
Yeah.
I'm reminded of how the sources challenged us to think about these things in our own lives.
Yeah, like how can we recognize when we're starting to compromise our own values?
Yeah, what are our red flags? Like, what are the things that make us go down a path we know isn't right?
And do we have people in our lives who can hold us accountable?
People who will tell us the truth, even when it's hard to hear.
Those people are so valuable.
It's not always easy to hear their feedback, but
But we need it.
we do.
It helps us stay on track and make better choices.
Absolutely. And the sources also make me think about forgiveness.
Yeah. Have we truly experienced the power of both giving and receiving forgiveness?
That's a tough one.
It's something I'm always working on.
Me too.
It's not easy to let go of hurt and anger, but it's so important for our own well-being.
Yeah, holding on to those things just weighs us down.
It does, and it prevents us from moving forward.
Okay, so wrapping up, what are the big takeaways from David and Bathsheba's story?
Well, I think it's a stark reminder that none of us are perfect.
We're all going to mess up.
Yeah, but it's what we do after we mess up that really matters.
It's about making amends, taking responsibility, and choosing a different path.
Exactly. And even when we face the consequences of our actions, there's still hope.
We can learn from our mistakes and move forward with a renewed sense of purpose.
It's a message of hope and redemption that I think we can all relate to.
Definitely. So what do you think is the most important thing for our listeners to take away from this?
I think it's the idea that even when we make really bad choices, even when we hurt others or ourselves, there's always a chance to turn things around.
We always have the power to choose a different path.
Exactly. It's never too late to start making better choices.
I love that message.
Me too. Something I try to remind myself of every day.
Okay, so to wrap up our deep dive today, we encourage you to think about these things in your own life.
Yeah, how can you apply these lessons to your own experiences?
What are your red flags?
Yeah.
Who are your accountability partners?
And have you experienced the transformative power of forgiveness?
These are tough questions, but they're worth asking.
They are, and they can lead to some pretty amazing growth and change.
All right, that's it for today, folks. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the story of David and Bathsheba.
We hope you found it insightful.
And we'll see you next time.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.